Hey friends, welcome back to Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I'm just back from a powerful week with horses. And let me tell you, these incredible animals are mirrors for us in ways that would stop you in your tracks. I know it stopped me in my tracks. So, in today's episode, I'm sharing the lessons I learned in the corral, on the trail, and even while brushing the horse's mane. Lessons about presence, authenticity, surrender, and remembering what brings us joy. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a leader, or someone who simply wants to live more lit up, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at the Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Straight from the corners of my mind. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am Debbie Heiser, and I am excited to chat with you today. I just spent this past week at the Sylvandale Ranch outside of Loveland, Colorado, with a group of women. Two of them were my gals that I travel with, a mastermind in my business, but the rest were strangers. And the Wild Heart Equine Retreats is who puts it on. Roxy was the coach. And this group of women, we spent time in a space that felt both deeply grounding and incredibly expansive. So, it's interesting because I thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to go ride. I'm going to hang out with horses. I've always loved horses. As a matter of fact, I have loved Palomino horses since I was a child. I actually have an old coaster that has a Palomino horse on it. And I had hoped and hoped and hoped I got a Palomino horse. And sure enough, I got a Palomino. His name was Lucky. He was a fantastic horse all week. But what was interesting to me is I thought to myself after this week, and I was reflecting, like, you want to see your insides? Like, see who you really are? Go hang out with a horse for a bit because horses have this way of holding up a mirror for us. And the interesting thing is they don't lie, they don't flatter, they simply reflect back the truth of where we're at, our energy and our emotions. And it was such a fantastic week. So I wanted to share a few things that I learned in hopes that you see yourself in some of this and take away some learnings as well. So, one of the first things I noticed was while I was grooming one of the horses, I was combing his mane and it fell in these strands against his neck that looked so much like my own hair. And instantly I was transported back to childhood, sitting while my mom brushed my hair. And those were tender, loving moments. And some of them were funny. One time, because I had a lot of knots and it would hurt and we'd both be kind of upset, and she went to go tap me on the rear end with a brush and the brush broke and I burst out laughing. So as I was doing this, I was thinking about those tender loving moments and kind of got a little choked up, and then I was giggling because I was remembering that. So it also though helped remind me of really how important it is to reflect and to remember. So it's so important to remember what it was like to be that little girl or that little boy, to remember the things that bring us joy, that brought us joy long before we thought we had to earn it, monetize it, or prove ourselves through it. And that goes for love too, because the horse just emits love. They can also emit not wanting to be around you and be agitated and everything else, which I'll share here in a minute. But it's so important as entrepreneurs because we can get so caught up in the hustle that we forget the simple things that brought us joy. But, those memories, those childlike joys, it's a part of our essence, a part of who we are. And when we reconnect to them, we access creativity, we access compassion and resilience in ways that strategy and thinking alone can never give us. Now, another powerful lesson came, and every time I walked up to the horse, Lucky was his name, and when I was in my headspace thinking about the day, analyzing, which is really a state I'm in quite a bit, he would literally turn his head away, almost like my grandson sometimes does when he's not interested. And the horse was kind of saying, nope, you're not here, you're not present, so I'm not going to pay attention to you. But then I would stand there and I would have my hand on his neck and I took a few deep breaths. And when I took those breaths and I centered myself, I dropped into my heart space, and then something magical happened. The horse would turn and he would take his head and set it right on my shoulder and rest his head on my shoulder. So he was in a vulnerable state when I went into a vulnerable state. So, friends, that's the mirror. See, the horse was showing me too what my clients, my family, even strangers feel when I'm caught in my head versus when I'm present in my heart. And it doesn't mean we get rid of everything that it's in our head. It's about integration of our head, our heart, our intuition, and our bodies. And that was important with the horse too, because it was interesting when I showed up that way and I would embody myself. And, I'll be honest, the difference was really undeniable. And so when you think about that and how the horse approached you, and I'm going to share a couple of other stories that will kind of share that, it's the same in business. When we show up present and grounded, people lean in, they're attracted to that. But when we show up scattered or worse yet, masked, then they turn away. And so, speaking of masks, we did a mask exercise that I'm actually going to incorporate into some of my work, and I'll never forget it. We were asked to draw on one side what we show other people. And then what we did is, after we did this, we were also asked to do something on the inside, but it's not necessarily prevalent to the story, so I don't want to give it all away. But we then went to the arena and we had a small corral set up in the arena. And we were asked to pick one of the horses, and I picked a horse. I don't remember what his name was, to be honest with you. And as we walked into the corral, we were asked to hold these masks. I tried to put it on my face, but it was a little uncomfortable. And so I held the mask in front of me, and we were asked to embody the energy that that mask shows. And for me, it's this one that I've had for a long time that I feel like is the last one to drop, because I've been doing this work of getting rid of the masks. Not that I haven't been authentic, but we learn certain things to survive, to keep us in a mode of what we feel like is successful. And for me, it's that I got all my shit together. And it was interesting because embodied that energy. And the horse came up to me. He snatched the mask away. He ripped a hole in it. He stomped on it, put it on the ground, mushed it into the dirt. It was dirty. That half the mask was gone. I don't even know if he ate it. I never did find the piece to it. And he was super agitated and restless. And it was clear that this mask that I wear didn't resonate with this horse. But then when I started to talk about what the mask represented, dropped into my body, dropped into my heart, the truth underneath, the authentic me that I want people to see, the messy part of me, and how I can be in the middle of a mess and still have still have peace. That horse, then, when I started to embody that energy, that horse came straight up to me and laid his head on my chest. So like his nuzzle, I think is what you call it, like where his nose is, he laid it right on my chest and just rested there. So do you hear the lesson here? When we lead with masks, when we lead with the polished version of ourselves, people feel the disconnect. But when we drop the mask and we step into our true authentic self, and I get it, folks, this is not an easy thing for me. I'm being a little vulnerable here. It's not always easy for me to be vulnerable, to be, I'm open, but to a certain degree, right? But when we do that and we drop the masks, people are drawn to us. Clients want to work with us. Opportunities find us. The energy shifts because we've shifted our energy. So the horse didn't need me to be perfect. He needed me to be real. And so does your business, and so does your community. So when you think about this, horses have a huge energy field, and we can show up, and that energy field they can shift us a little bit too. And I found that like it was very calming and reassuring. But showing up and being real, being messy, it's okay to be messy. When I was in business in the 90s, it wasn't okay to be messy. So think about that for your business, in the community that you're involved in, whether that be nonprofit work, whether that be a W-2 job, in the culture that you're in. So, kind of with that and showing up in the mess, I found myself too having another big takeaway because I learned I could do hard things. And what was interesting is at one point, I mentioned to the coach that there were trails that we did, things that we did that I wouldn't have necessarily chosen for myself because of fear. And when you're with the collective and you're with the group, and I'm going to talk about the herd here in a minute, it's interesting how you kind of go with the flow. And then I got to it and I'm like, whoa, I do have a choice. I could say, nope, I'm not going to do this. And they could take me a different way, or I could trust. And so I trusted. And so a couple of situations, excuse me, that happened was at one point my horse got spooked by a golf cart that backfired, and he bucked and it was intense, and I was afraid I was going to fall. I was anticipating a little bit that I would fall, but it happened so quickly that I stayed in the saddle and I pulled back on the reins to calm him down. I steadied myself. I breathed deeply and I calmed him down. And then when we went on the trail ride, it gave me some confidence. It gave me some reassurance that I can handle things that come my way, right? Again, another mirror, right, to business and life. Then later, a couple days later, we went on a trail ride that was pretty steep and rocky and slick. And one of the trail rides we went on, and I don't know why I have this weird fear about cars and like falling off of a cliff. And I don't love it. Like even when I'm hiking, when something is straight down, if it's straight down on both sides, I kind of freeze a little bit. But if it's one side, I can kind of turn, almost like the horse did to me, right? Like turn and act like it's not there. So we were going along, and this was after the horse had spooked with the golf cart. And I kept thinking to myself, if this horse spooks right here, there's nowhere to go but down. And so I had to let go. I had to deep breathe again, calm down. And then, we went on some other ones that were steep and rocky and really slick. And honestly, it would have been easy to tense up as I was in the saddle, but also knowing the horse can feel that, your legs are around them, they feel the tensing of that. I could have tried to control everything, but kind of what I learned, particularly on the slick spots that we went up, that he knew where he was going. He wanted to get there safely. He was going to get me safely because he wanted to get there safely. And so I loosened up my grip a little bit. I held on to the reins, but I also held on to the horn and the saddle because I was a little nervous. But I loosened my grip and I allowed Lucky to choose his steps. I surrendered. And in that surrender, I found safety. I found flow. And I was reminded in life and business that we don't have to micromanage every step. We need to trust. That's that faith that I talk about. Trust that the how will come, right? When we make a decision, and in this case, I let go and made the decision to let Lucky do his thing, and he did it. The means come when we are ready. So we need to let go just enough to, and not just enough, but enough to allow the path to unfold. And it reminds me of something that Peter Crone says, that in the absence of searching for happiness is where we find happiness, right? Because happiness is already here. When we surrender and let go, what we need to get where we want to go is already here. We just can't see it because we're hanging on so tight. Because when you hang on tight, it's like choking a bird, right? Like we're choking off everything. But when we surrender, we open up to what's coming, what's here. So think about that quote. I love it. In the absence of searching for happiness is where we find happiness. And that became prevalent to me over and over again around peace, around, and there were a couple times I had to breathe deeply, even coming down, which those of you that know me, down is not my favorite way. But although it's funny that I love to alpine ski and go down, but interestingly enough, like I held on, but the power was there and Lucky knew what he was doing. So one morning we rode up, and this was the morning we went up on those kind of slick ridges and or on the slick steps. And we rode up to the ridge, and it was at the top of this mountain to a beautiful open space where we had breakfast cooked over a fire, coffee over the fire with stunning views all around us. Like you could look down onto the ranch, you looked out and saw these beautiful mountains and green pastures, and beauty was surrounding us. And that moment reminded me how beauty is always here. It's surrounding us, it's everywhere, whether you're in a city, whether you're out in the country, wherever you are. We just need to notice it. I always say everything in life is a miracle or it's not. It's about choice and choosing to look for the beauty. And so, as I looked at this beauty, I was really present and lucky, and the rest of the horses, they require presence because if you're not present, it's similar to snow skiing. It's like there's so many things to kind of keep an eye on that my brain doesn't have time to be thinking all the time. And the same thing I found true with horseback riding. It really requires my presence because when I was riding, I'm scanning, I'm paying attention, I'm being aware of my surroundings. And that's a practice that I want to invite you into to be present, scan your world, not for danger, but for beauty, for the miracles, because they're right there if you're willing to see them. So we're going to take a quick break and I'm going to come back and share with you a few other things that I learned this last week. I want to give a quick shout out to my favorite online community for women entrepreneurs. It's called Build Her. If you've craved a space to connect with other women who truly get the journey, this is your space. We go live monthly for in-depth training on all things business, and it's where you'll get the latest news from the Lit Up Life first. Plus a chance to swap stories, tips, and triumphs with an amazing community of women. It's welcoming, it's fun, and it's where we cheer each other on through every up and down of entrepreneurship. Join us and let's build each other up. Check it out at thelituplife.com/buildher. Okay, welcome back. I was talking about some of the things that I learned doing hard things. And one of the things that I found so cool, we were staying in a cabin that was a little bit further away from some of the other cabins because Shannon, my mastermind sister, and I shared a cabin. And I think they ran out of one-room cabins. But so every day we witnessed something called the jingle. And we didn't see it every day, but we got to see it sometimes in the morning, or they would come by just because of where our cabin was. But what we witnessed, this jingle, is when the horses were moved together as a herd, and they leave the barn and they come out to pasture for the night, and then they collect them in the morning and bring them back. They bring the horses that were riding and then put the rest in different arenas, or pastures, right, to hang out and in their stalls. And so watching them run out into the pasture and return in the morning, it was breathtaking. It was so cool because they really moved as one. They flowed together as a collective. It reminded me of a kind of a stream, right? They were all moving in the same direction, kind of at the same speed. And it really struck me how vital community is. And some of you that have been listening for a while know I talk about this because community is important. It's important for them to be in a herd, and it's important for us to feel like we have a tribe where we belong, right? And not just one tribe, but that we have community. And horses don't thrive alone, and neither do we. And so I spent that week with women, some of whom were complete strangers. And by the end of it, we built relationship like the horses in the herd. And it was really interesting to watch too how some women kind of wanted to separate themselves from the herd. And, there was a woman that came a little bit late and she left a little bit early, and kind of then others that really enmeshed themselves, and we all kind of started chatting, and others that would kind of remove themselves, similar to the herd when horses would move towards the back or move towards the front. And it's okay. It's okay to have those times when you're completely in the middle of the pack, and it's okay to be leading the pack, and it's okay to be behind following. And that became very prevalent to me, that I don't always have to lead things. I step into leadership sometimes and don't even realize it. But in community, we all need this herd, right? We need this area where we can be supported, where we can grow. And that's really, to me, the beauty too of going to retreats, being part of masterminds, being part of networking groups and communities. And really, it's why I'm so passionate about creating those kinds of spaces where women can gather, reflect, and step into their authentic selves, because it's life changing, just like this last week was life changing for me. So I want to give another shout out to the Wild Heart retreats and to the Sylvandale Ranch, who their staff and their cowboys and cowgirls, I forget what they called them, the ranch hands, were phenomenally patient and super joyful, and it just reminded me too of to love what you do. So here's kind of a recap of the lessons that the horses gave me this past week. Remember your joy. Drop into that little girl and little boy. Drop into presence. Practice being present. I find I don't take near as many photos as I used to because I'm more present in the situations that I'm in. Also, lead with authenticity and remove the mask. Trust yourself to do hard things. Surrender and allow life to guide you. Find beauty in the present moment and never underestimate the power of the herd or the community. And honestly, that's why I'm wanting to invite you to join us too at the Cast Your Vision retreat in Sandpoint, Idaho, this October 23rd through the 26th, because this retreat is your chance to step away from the noise, reconnect with yourself, and join a community, a herd of powerful women who are ready to support you, celebrate you, and dream with you. So just like those horses, we thrive in connection. And at the retreat, you're going to find clarity, community, and courage to create your next chapter. So go to thelituplife.com/retreat and claim your spot today. We've only got a few left. I can't wait to see you there. Thanks again for being with us. I hope you got as much out of this as I got out of the week that I spent with the horses. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them below in YouTube or whatever platform that you're listening to this. And we'll talk again in the next couple of weeks. Ciao. That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes, and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.